Good morning, and welcome to my senior speech. You've heard many teachers come to the podium this year to talk about their life experiences and how it relates to our definition of leadership. From Mrs. Frazier talking about her friend who lost her life in 9/11, to Will Mills talking about the importance of exceeding expectations, to Doc Maripol explaining why teaching is his passion. So when Miss Brennan asked me to present today, my initial thought was, oh no. Those other speeches have been so good, and I don't want to be the loser of that bunch. So I've been thinking a lot about what to say today. I even talked it over with Eston one morning over a cup of coffee, looking for some guidance and support. But all she would say was, whatever you do, don't talk about yourself. I'm so sick of hearing you do that. And then she got up and stormed away. A few days later, I bumped into Mr. Lyons and asked him for some help. With a confused look on his face, he said, "You're up next." I said, "I didn't know they were that far down on the list yet." Then he giggled his own little joke, and he wished me luck. No advice, though. So anyway, I started thinking about what is leadership, and what does our definition really mean? What does it mean on a daily basis? Many times we see it in an event that we either witness or initiate, where courage and action join forces to do the right thing. As Ernest Green told us, it can all boil down to a moment in time. So I thought back to that moment when I first witnessed a memorable act of leadership. And here's my story. Medford High School, 1975, and I'm a sophomore. Yeah, it's a long time ago. Stop doing the math in the back. For preseason, the entire football team, all 120 of us, boarded buses and ventured off to Camp Cathedral in Freetown, Mass. for a week of training camp. The accommodations are very simple. 2 big bunkhouses, 60 players per house. We endured triple sessions in the sticky August heat, but for those of us who loved football, it was paradise. It was Tuesday night, and day 3 was coming to a close. We showered, ate dinner, watched films, and headed back to our quarters. When we entered, the lights were off, and I got attacked by what seemed to be an army of men. I remember the smell of mustard, ketchup, mayonnaise, and relish as they rubbed it into my eyes, up my nose, and into my mouth. They called this treatment the human hot dog. I felt the stinging pain of wet towels snapping on my bare back. I think I screamed, and I'm not really sure. The final touch was the application of the icy hot cream. The heat went from uncomfortable to unbearable in a matter of minutes. After a long struggle, they finally let me go. I staggered into the showers, hoping the water would stop the burn. It took until morning for the full effects to wear off. This was part of the culture back then at Medford High School. The seniors hazed the sophomores, the juniors watched and cheered, and our coaches, tucked away in their cozy cabins, did nothing to stop it. Fast forward 2 years. I'm a senior, and it was my turn. Still feeling the distant sting from my sophomore year, I silently vowed not to participate. I saw a group of seniors, my friends and teammates, gathering in the back of the dorm. They called me over to join them, but I told them I was exhausted from the day's practices. They had big jars of every condiment they could steal from the kitchen, and the icy hot was ready too. When the moment arrived, one of the seniors, his name was Pat, stood up and yelled, "Stop." There was total silence. He said to the crowd of attackers, "How can we expect the sophomores to act like our teammates if we treat them like this? Why would they want to block for us, tackle our opponents, or even be part of this team?" A group of supporters formed behind Pat, and there was a standoff. After some pushing, shoving, and a lot of tough talk, the attackers backed down. The culture of hazing at Medford High had ended. At least that year it did. But what surprised me most about this moment was that Pat was an ordinary player. He wasn't a captain, not even a starter during his junior year. But for some reason, he couldn't take it anymore, and he decided to put an end to it. As far as I know, he told nobody of his plan. He just did it. Years after he stepped down from office, Nixon wrote a book on the leaders he met during his presidency. And one part of the book really stuck with me. He wrote, "When the final curtain goes down on a play, the members of the audience file out of the theater and go home to resume their normal lives. When the curtain comes down on a leader's career, The very lives of the audience have been changed, and the course of history may have been profoundly altered. So back to my initial question, what is leadership? It's hard to really fully describe in words. Many times, though, it's defined by a moment when a seemingly ordinary person decides to do something extraordinary. It's one of those things that you know when you see it, and I hope I get the chance to see it in all of you before you graduate. Thank you.